Hi, my name is Brad Phillips. I'm here with Puppy Leash Training. We're going to be doing Jack's demonstration today. We are very excited to send him to you. He's such a fun puppy. I'm sure you guys are going to love him. I think he'll make a great member of your family. Before we get started and I go through the demonstration, just a couple things that I'd like to point out before we get started. The first is that he is still a puppy. He's also a living, breathing animal. And so because of that, he is subject to environmental change, and so that the next couple weeks are going to be very critical for his transition. And so you are going to have to be patient with him, and you're going to have to help him understand that you expect the same thing that we do, and that he's going to learn what's his and what's yours, and you're going to have to give him the necessary feedback. And so with that, there's a couple things that you need to know. The first is okay. Okay is our marker and our release word, and so it marks the correct behavior and releases from a stay. The other word you need to know is no or nope. That is our correction term, and so we use that somewhat as a misdemeanor felony. Alright, so if he does something wrong regardless, he's going to get a correction. Now if it's something a little bit less severe, like he breaks a stay, I'll tell him no and I'll have him do it again, and I'll always end with the correct behavior. If he does something more serious, like he jumps on me or he tries to steal food, I'm going to give him more of a firm correction. And the way you make that more firm is you adjust your voice fluctuation and your body language. Those two indicators are things that a dog reads more than anything else. And so the other thing just to remember is that he is a puppy. He's got a lot of learning left to do, and he's got to mature. And so just understand that, and I hope you enjoy the puppy phase. But through this next couple weeks, we'll talk about a few things throughout the demonstration, things to be aware of, but allow him to transition, be patient with him, and give him the necessary feedback that he needs. And with that, we'll move into the actual demonstration. We'll talk for just a minute more on the first phase, and that's socialization. Then we'll move into his manners, then his obedience commands, his house training, and his leash training. So, socialization. And this is the most important part for me. I want to make sure that I'm going to help my dog to make sure that he doesn't have any problems with timidness, aggression, or anything like that. And so basically that socialization is the first thing that we do, and we take him to a family here in Clarkson, which their sole purpose is to get him used to different sounds. And so simple as daily chores, the vacuum, any type of household sounds, as well as we get him used to different places, different people, things. We just want to give him as many new situations as possible so that he can be confident and comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And so you won't have any problems with him running away because he's timid or acting out in aggression. So we also focus on that throughout the training, doing commands on different surfaces, doing them around different noises, around new people, new environments, things like that, just to make sure that we're exposing him to as much as we can in a controlled environment. So with that, we'll move into his manners and we'll let him out. So the first manner we're going to talk about is his gates and his doorways. And so we'll start with letting him out of the crate. Anytime he comes through the gate or out of the crate or through the house door, I expect him to hold a stay. Now this should be an automatic behavior, but like I said, he's still a puppy and he's going to be he's still learning. And so if he does ever break, I might simply shut the door or block him with my foot. And if he's really persistent on coming out, I might actually tell him to stay. But for the most part, it should be just an automatic behavior. And when I'm ready for him to come out, then I'll use the marker word, which is okay. Okay, good boy. Good boy. So I'll also show you this using the house door, and I'll just do that when we go outside. But we'll continue with our manners. The next one being his greeting. So anytime you call him to you, come here, I expect him to sit before I give him any attention. This does a couple things. First, it gets him planted so he's not trying to jump on you, as well as he's not wrapping you up with a leash. And then the most important one is it gets his eye contact. And so for a dog, they have a single track mind. Whatever they're looking at, that's what they're thinking about. And so if you get his eye contact, you know that his focus is on you. Next, we'll talk about his mealtime manners. So anytime you feed him, I expect him to hold a sit stay, in which he's sitting right there, so I'm just going to tell him, stay. And his mealtime is a great time to work on his stays. We have what we call the 3 Ds, and that's distance, duration, and distraction. And so those 3 things build a solid stay. And so talking, that's a huge distraction, which he's doing great with. Moving his food bowl, time, he's holding it quite a bit longer than I expect, and so, okay, we'll release him and let him eat. So he is very food driven, and so we do like to use his mealtime, and sometimes I'll just take the bowl away, in which he always tries to eat as much as he can when you do that, but it's a good thing to slow his feeding, and I might tell him to do it again. Stay. Okay, good boy. The other thing I like to do during his meals is I like to put my hands down in his food bowl to make sure that we don't have any issues with food aggression. And that's extremely important if you have small kids or if there's going to be small children around. That he's not going to be aggressive if a small child crawls over and sticks their hands in his food or water bowl. I want to make sure that he's comfortable and he's not going to act out aggression. Which I've never seen him act aggressively, and so I don't think you'd have any issues with that. But we want to make sure that we protect against anything, and so we also make a habit of handling his paws, his ears, his tail, and just to make sure that he's not going to be aggressive over any part of his body. Oh, buddy. We'll let him finish up there. The other thing that I like to do is I like to change it up, and sometimes I'll feed him with a slow feeding bowl. So he takes a breath and he eats a little bit slower. The other thing you can do if you just have a regular bowl is stick a tennis ball in there so he has to eat around it. That you can see how he's sucking in. They just get a little bit excited over their meal and just inhale it, and sometimes they'll choke and things like that. So about 50% of the time I'll switch it up and use a slow feeding bowl. Oh, buddy. So, the other manner dealing with aggression is probably the most commonly mistaked form of aggression, and that's with children. And so children are like the greatest thing to a dog, especially a puppy. They run, they squeal, it seems like it's a lot of fun to run and chase them, and so they end up grabbing a pant leg or an arm, and the neighborhood mother will think that the dog's acting out in aggression and you'll have an issue. And so we just recommend if small children are going to be playing with him, that they have a toy or something that he can grab onto, and if the children get nervous, they can throw the toy. And it just, it helps prevent mistakes from happening or accidents from happening. Good boy. Drop it. Good boy. So, one manner that you just saw me do right there is drop it. And so, with drop it, I expect him to physically release whatever he has. And so whether it's a toy or whether it's food or anything like that, if you tell him to drop it, I expect him to release it. And so when he brings it back, I'll just ask him, drop it. And I want him to open his mouth just like that. You do have to be a little bit careful with these soft toys as their teeth can get caught in them. So that's why you never want to pull it away. That way you don't injure him. Instead, I want him to open his mouth and release the pressure. Now, if he ever has something that he does not want to let go of, if it's long enough, you can grab it on both sides and you just hold it really still, and it makes it unappealing. And if they continue to grab onto it, you can just pinch your knuckles in. It just causes some discomfort along his cheeks. And if for some reason he still won't give it up, then I'll just stick my hand inside his mouth, or my thumb, and press down on his tongue. And it's like a button, they just open up. But he's done really well with drop it, and he definitely loves to play. But I do want him to be aware of his teeth. He does have those baby teeth, and so they're very sharp, and so drop it. Good boy. we have a number of commands just for his mouth. And so drop it's one of them. The next is gently. Anytime he takes a treat, I want him to be very cautious, and I don't want him to end up biting me. And so if he's real excited or if he lunges up at the treat, I'll just tell him gently, and I expect him to be very cautious taking the treat. The other thing that's important is that when you do give him food, that you present it in the palm of your hand. That way if he jumps, you can pull it away and close your hand. Whereas if you have it between your thumb and forefinger, you're just asking him to grab your fingers. So that's just gently, and he should be very cautious taking the treat. Now going back to his teeth, he is teething, and so he definitely has the need to chew. And the way that we train chewing is a base of avoiding and replacing. If you can avoid giving him free access to shoes, to toys, to things of that sort, of course that's your best way to protect against an accident happening. However, it's not really possible in your house. You're always going to have a table leg or a pillow or a bed or something that he, or a couch is what I meant, not a bed. But there's always something that he has access to that he can chew on. And so for that, that's when replacing comes in handy. And that's especially critical during these next 2 weeks. And so if I see him chewing on his bed, I'll replace it with something like that soft toy. And I'll tell him no, and then I'll replace it. Whereas if I see him chewing on like a table leg or something hard, I'm going to replace it with something hard. And so you're replacing based on texture, basing it on his need for chewing. Now, boredom is the #1 cause of all chewing disasters. And that's because either he's bored because you left out his toys, and so he has free access to them, so he gets bored with them and he tries to find something new. Or he's just bored in the house and he just wants to find something to chew on. And so because of that, anytime we have a downtime, whether we're reading a book or watching a show, I would just give him something to chew on. And these bully sticks, I mean, it'll entertain him for you know, a little while. But that way, while he's just lounging around, he has something to do and he's relieving that pressure. And so, yeah, with that, we'll cover our last manner, which is jumping. And jumping is definitely one of my biggest pet peeves. I hate a dog that jumps on me. And so we've spent a lot of time working on jumping with them, and they were very jumpy as puppies. And so we've instilled the command off, and so that's whether he jumps up on your couch or whether he jumps up on you. And so I'll just tell him off, and you want to be more firm with that. I would also recommend for the next couple weeks that you leave a short leash attached to him. That way if he jumps up on the couch, like you can grab his leash, give him a leash correction, which is 2 pops. You're not trying to yank him off, but just pop him and tell him off at the same time. Now, if he jumps up on you, there's a couple important things to remember. First is that you never step back. As soon as you step back, you're encouraging him to jump. I'll always step into the jump. That restricts the distance, and a lot of times will prohibit the jump right then. And if he does continue to jump, it's putting him at an angle where you can just bring your knee up. You want to catch him in the chest and just flip him over. That just shows leadership. It shows that dominance in a pack. As soon as you put him onto his back, he's going to understand that you're the leader, you're the alpha. Now, if you have someone in your family that he thinks that he's above them in the rankings, then that's going to be the person that he wants to jump on more than anyone else. And so in that case, a good exercise to do is I'll take him by the leash and I'll walk him up to that person, and they can be calling him. And as soon as he tries to jump, I'll give him that leash correction, just 2 pops on the leash, and I'll turn around and walk the other direction. I'll do that as many times as it takes for him to approach them and sit down and show them that greeting, and then they're allowed to give him the attention he wants. The other thing is, if there is someone that he feels like he's above them, have them control his food. In a pack, the alpha always controls the food. So with that, we'll move into our obedience commands. So with his commands, there's 8 big ones that we focus on. That being watch me, come, sit, sit stay, down stay, crate, and go to bed. The other one, which we've already talked about, but drop it, I consider that to be a command as well as a manner, as I expect him to do it because I ask him to, but I also expect him to do it out of being a well-mannered dog. And so we're going to show you that one again. Drop it. Oh, he already let go of it. But just to show that he'll give up this just like you will a toy. So now we'll start with watch me. So watch me, very simply, is just get his eye contact. And we've also used his name in the same way so that he'll look at us when it's said. Watch me. Okay, good boy. And all we're looking for is that eye contact. And the same thing with his name. Jack. Okay, just want him to look up at me. And it's as soon as he makes eye contact with you. It goes back to when I was talking about his greeting. If you have his eye contact, you have his focus. And so that's also a great one that you can practice just for him to get used to the way that you reward. And you can just get him to look away for a few minutes or for a few seconds. Watch me. Okay. And look for that eye contact. Now that command can be used in a life-saving situation. If he's running into traffic, you just need him to stop and look at you. As well as if you're just in the kitchen cooking, you drop a steak on the floor. You don't want him to get it. Ask him to look at you. Now, that's probably our most basic command, and we teach that from day one. And the only other command we start teaching that early is come. And so come is very important to me. I want that command to be there when I need it. I want my dog to respond. And so it's very simply just getting him to come. Jack, come! Good boy. And you also want to say that very excitedly. You want to entice him to come. The other thing with that is the one command that everybody breaks first thing. And that's because when do you call your dog to come? It's when they're doing something they're not supposed to, like chasing a cat or digging, or it's time to leave the park, something negative. And so they'll build a negative association with the word. Jack, come! Good boy. And so I'm going to keep a rule of 10 to 1. I'm going to call him to me 10 times for no reason at all other than to give him a treat and let him go again for every one time I have to call him to come. That way he's expecting a reward, it's something positive, and he's going to respond. If I don't have to call him to come, I won't. If we're leaving the park, I'll go hook a leash on him and just go. If we're around the house, I'll do something different, like something just to get his attention and get him to come to me. Because I want that word to have the integrity attached to it. When I ask him to come, I want him to come. So the next 3 commands, well I guess 4, have hand signals. And the 3 hand signals are a sit, which is a scoop over the nose, down, which I'll just take my hand flat and go down to the floor, and stay is just a stop sign. And so both sit and down have stays attached to them when asked. And with that, if he's in a sit stay, I'm fine if he lays down. Whereas if he's in a down stay, he's never allowed to come up. And so I'll demonstrate for you. And so I'll just ask him to sit, down, stay. Now he has a good puppy stay, but never be satisfied. Always be seeking to improve it. Add those 3 Ds. Distance, duration, distraction. Okay, good boy. So our standard is 20 seconds. However, with him, we've definitely surpassed that. So same thing with the sit stay. I'll tell him sit, stay. No, and if he breaks like that, come here. Take him back to the same place. Sit, stay. But it's critical that you always end with correct behavior. Okay, good boy. And if he tends to be really having a hard time, then you might just need to ease the distraction or make it a little bit shorter, something like that, so that he does end on that correct behavior. Now, the next 2 don't necessarily have hand signals, but I'll always put myself in a position where he can read my body language, and that's crate and go to bed. And so, go to bed, I would simply just be near it, and I would just tell him, go to bed. And I might point, I'll look at the bed, I'll give him a treat when he gets on, but he's expected to stay until released. Okay, good boy, good boy. Now, he really does love his bed. That's definitely his favorite place to go, and so you probably noticed when I threw a toy or I gave him this bully stick, he went right to his bed. And which is really nice because that's his place where that you can move around the house wherever you need to be. If you're in the family room, you're watching a show, you can move his bed in there, and you give him something to chew on, he's going to go lay down on his bed. And if it's something messy, it's going to come find that mess. And so they definitely do love their bed. However, if you need to tell him to go to it, come here, I would just go to bed. Good boy. Don't care what position he's in, as long as all four paws are on the bed. Okay, good boy, good boy. So crate's the same thing. I'll just point, crate, and expect him to go in freely. Once again, I'll give him the treat in there, and that's if you're going to lock him up or you're just practicing. He's also expected to stay. Okay, good boy. Now, crate, I would treat kind of the same way with come. Practice it a handful of times before you lock him up, because you don't want to just use that command when you're putting him in the crate at night or leaving to run errands, because then he's going to quickly associate that command with being locked up, and he'll no longer want to go inside the crate. And we've worked very hard at making sure that he's comfortable in his crate. He's comfortable to sleep through the night, 8 to 10 hours. We generally put him in there about 10 and get him out between 6:30 and 7. He's also he's also comfortable to be in there at 4-hour blocks during the day without needing a break. Now, if he does seem a little bit anxious in there, sometimes we'll give him like a bully stick, something to chew on. I wouldn't put toys in there, but a bully stick's fine. Also, if he's real anxious, you can throw a blanket over the top just so to help him feel comfortable in there. Now, over the next couple days, it's very common for the stress of the transition to cause them to get a loose stool or to go to the bathroom a little bit more frequent. And so don't be surprised if in the next couple days he starts to whine in the middle of the night. May just need to go to the bathroom. And so I would let him out, take him to go to the bathroom, and then I'd put him right back in. I wouldn't ever, if he whines, let him out of the crate just to be, because then he's just going to whine because he wants out. And so, but the other thing, use the crate as your asset. It's a tool, and he's very comfortable using it. And so if you can't give him the attention needed, definitely put him in the crate. It'll save you a lot of accidents. Come here. Good boy, good boy. So with that, we'll talk about his house training, and we'll go from there. So house training, a couple things that I like to emphasize with people before I teach you how to transition the bell and about all of his house training. It's very important over the next couple weeks that you give him 100% supervision. You do not want to allow him the option of having an accident in your house. And so if you can't give him that attention, use the crate. Put him in there. He'll be fine. But you want to make sure that you have eyes on him. And that doesn't mean you can send him with like your 8-year-old child. You want to make sure that you have... Good boy. You want to make sure that you have someone very responsible watching him so he doesn't have the opportunity. Now there's a couple things that you can look for if he does have to go to the bathroom. If he's been sleeping and he wakes up, I would just take him over to the bell, take him outside, and I'll tell you what that means in just a second, taking him to the bell. Also, if he just gets up and he starts sniffing really heavily, I would take him out. Or if he starts wandering in circles, I would take him out. Same thing, as soon as he gets out of the crate in the morning or in the afternoon, take him out to use the bathroom. Now, he should, over the next couple weeks, get right back into his routine of ringing the bell and going to the bathroom outside. However, you are going to have to teach him where he's allowed to go to the bathroom, where the bell is in your house, and that it means the same thing for you that it does for me. And so first things first, when you get to your house, I would take him out to wherever you want him to go. Pace around for a minute or two, give him the opportunity to sniff. If he goes, be very positive. Give him a reward, pet him, just be very, very excited and positive. Now our marker for going to the bathroom is outside. So if he goes, I'll tell him, good outside, good boy, and I'll give him lots of attention. Oh, good boy. And after that, I would bring him in and transition the bell. And so to transition the bell, what you're going to do is I'm going to teach you to do it the same way that I do it. And so I bring him, and I will warn you after I do this, because I'm going to just show you how to do it. He'll probably ring the bell like 6 or 7 times before we're done. And so I'll bring him in front of me, I'll have a handful of treats, and every time he touches the bell, I'll tell him, okay, okay. This is also where you can control how loud you want him to ring it. Okay. And I'll do this a handful of times. Okay. As soon as he's hitting it really well, I'll come over to the door. Now, I'll hang it off the door at first. Do the exact same thing. Come here. Get him touching him on the door. If he doesn't immediately grab it like this, I might take it off the door and hang it in front of him. Or you can just stare at him. We call that free shaping. Just letting him kind of figure it out. But I'll just, okay. Get him ringing it again. Okay. Get him closer. Come here. You have to back up. Okay, good boy. After he starts ringing him on the door, okay. Switch to use the word outside. Outside. Okay, outside. As soon as you switch using that, you'll start taking him out. At which, every time he rings the bell after that, you will take him out. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so from that point, every time he touches the bell, you'll want to take him outside. After you've done that, and he's consistently ringing the bell, right there, then I would set a timer for 30 minutes. I would keep that timer probably over the next 2 days. As soon as that timer goes off, I would take him over, let him ring the bell probably 2 or 3 times, tell him outside, take him out, pace around for a minute or 2. If he goes, reward him very heavily. That doesn't have to be food. That could be praise, telling him good boy, giving him lots of pets, or a lot of petting and rubbing, and make it very worthwhile to him. And after he's those 2 days or so are up from taking him out every 30 minutes, start to lengthen the time from 30 minutes up to 2 hours. So the next day I do 45 minutes, then an hour, then 2 hours. Right now our standard is 2 hours with him being inside without needing a break. Now it's very important that you take him to the bell, have him ring it, go out, and do it every time, because the whole purpose of it is over the next 2 weeks, you want him to have as many opportunities, as many repetitions ringing the bell and going outside as possible. Okay, outside, good boy, outside. And then I would take him out. Okay. Okay. But along with this house training, just remember 100% supervision. I can't emphasize that enough. And take him out every time he rings the bell. If you are going outside to play, don't allow him to ring the bell. If he does ring the bell and you're going outside to play, take him out, let him go to the bathroom, and then bring him back in. And then wait a minute or 2, then you can go back out. So with that, we'll move into our leash training. So with his leash training, we take him on 2 types of walks. The first is a long lead or an off-leash walk. And that's just for him to be a dog. That's for him to run around and to play and to sniff and just to enjoy being out. And for those, we take him up into the mountains or down by the river or out into the field and just let him be. Now when I'm out doing that type of walks, I want to make sure that I'm working on his coming. So I'll take a handful of treats and I'll call him every minute or 2 to come back to me, give him a reward, and let him go again. And that's really going to build his come, as well as it's going to keep him in check. Now, until he's really consistent and he's responding really well to you, I would keep him on a long lead. You don't want to put him in a position where he could run and he could get into trouble. And so then once he's responding really well, let him off leash, let him go out and play and be himself. So the second type of walk is his attention walk, which we're going to go outside and I'm going to show you that here in just a second. But with that walk, there's two commands. One is let's go, just signifying we're moving. The second is easy if he does start to pull. Now with easy, there's a couple things to watch for. One is if he's just walking around you, sometimes they just find the end of the leash. And so for that, I don't want to tell him easy and give him a leash correction if he's just kind of walking and he's not really pulling. Now if he starts to pull, I'm going to give him a leash correction. I'm going to tell him easy, and I expect him to put the slack back in the leash. If there's a distraction that he really wants to get to, I'm going to tell him easy, and if he doesn't respond, I'll turn around and walk the other direction and do kind of the same exercise that you did with jumping. As soon as he regains his composure, we'll turn around and walk back towards the distraction. If he starts to pull, I'm going to turn around and walk the other way. And I'll continue up into the distraction until he's composed and he's walking with a loose leash. And so now we'll walk outside and I'll show you that. So with his attention walk, so I like to have him sit first to gain some composure there. And I like to have him walk next to me with a loose leash and to have his focus on me. Nope. So. And so for that, I'm just going to tell him, let's go. I'll walk up and you can see just the way that he responds to me. Let's go. Boy, let's go. Sit. Good boy. So that's exactly what I want. Him checking in every once in a while. And the way that we taught him is that every time he'd look at me, I would reward him. And so now we're to the point where we're weaning him off, and so I don't reward him every time he looks up at me, but I'll wait 10-20 steps. And then when he checks in, I'll say okay, and I'll give him a treat. And that way he's keeping focused on me. But that concludes our demonstration. If you have any questions for me, feel free to shoot me an email or call. But we definitely are very excited to send him to you. I think he's just a wonderful dog, and I think you'll really enjoy him. Thanks. Good boy. Let's go.